Jerry, you will remember that big minimum wage fight that took 2 years, and how incredibly hard it was for you, and how no matter what and no matter how many friends you feared it hurt, you stood up for what you knew was right, and it has been an enduring lesson for me to remember that that is what politics is all about. It's about doing what's right even when it's incredibly hard and not very fun at all. So thank you for all of that. I will love you always, and you will always be my hero and my mentor.
Good evening, Mr. President. Brought the whole family. Susie, Peggy, and I are all here. This is very well deserved. Hope you enjoy the night. Hope you enjoy the video. See you again.
Many blessings to you, Jerry, and to your family, and we all love you very much.
I first met Gerry Conley when I was 18 years old and a waitress in the Splendid restaurant. And Gerry and his friends used to come in and have coffee. And they taught me a lot because there would be 6 or 8 of them. Coffee was 10 cents. And at the end of the evening, they'd have drank all their coffee. Their bill would be 60 or 70 cents, and I'd get $1.50. And that says to me that Gerry has always looked out for the little person.
I would say that in all my years in Augusta, which are adding up all the time, he is the finest Senate president I ever had the pleasure of watching work. And Gerry, you deserve the award you're getting tonight, and I love you.
Most important thing is that he proposed to me, and I hope this is a priest tonight in the House. So Gerard, you better remember that, darling. God bless.
Gerry gave me some of my best political lessons in days gone past. We were in the Cumberland County Courthouse together when he was registered probate, now he's registered deeds. But one of the best things he ever taught me about politics was to forgive your enemies, but never forget who they were. And I always appreciated that.
It was my privilege to serve in the 106th and 107th state senates with Gerry Conley. He was a fine senator. I actually ran against him and lost, as I should have lost, and he never held it against me for the leadership position. And he's always treated me with the utmost respect, and I have the utmost respect for him.
I just wanted to tell you, Gerry, that we all really love you, and this is an honor that you sorely deserve. Should have had it before now, and we're proud of you and excited to be here, and glad so many of my family is here to celebrate with you. So have a nice evening.
Always honored when every time I see Gerry, he calls me mayor, and I call him mayor, and there's no greater public servant that we've ever had in the city of Portland than Gerry Conley.
I find Gerard Conley Sr. to have been probably the most broad-based servant of the public in public office that I've known really in the history of Maine. I mean, he's done everything, stuck with it over the years, been very selfless, even at times when he was carrying forth with a very large family, and keeping track of those boys was enough for any man, let alone working in the political world.
Congratulations. You've been a great fellow for us here in the city of Portland, and you have served us well. And certainly you've served the Brennan family well, and God bless you.
When I finally got all the way down to the West End, I met the Conleys, and of course they were closely associated with this church and this parish. And in all the work that I've done here with the Maine Irish Heritage Center, it's been a tremendous privilege to know Gerry Conley Sr. and Gerry Jr., and I'm very happy to be here for his celebration tonight.
I think the Irish community tonight is very proud of one of its greatest sons, and I for one know the Carys, the Sullivans, the O'Rourkes, the Murrays, and certainly all of our family in love with Gerry and wish him all the best.
A long-time relationship, and I think Maine has been blessed to have somebody who's as forceful an advocate and sincere politician as he is, and it's been a lot of fun.
I met Gerry 61 years ago, last March or so, and I can tell you we both worked at Ray's Diner, and I was just off the boat from Ireland, and Jerry was the only one who was really nice to me.
One concern in our relationship is he hangs around with my sister Ann too much, and my mother, who's 97, is concerned about it. So at this time, I'd like to say, Jerry, congratulations for everything. Look forward to going to Ireland with you next year to Dublin, and God bless.
Tá mé pastor Ruth agus tasam goel seal father ad. I'm very proud of you, and I know you're going to have a wonderful and long life.
It was wonderful just watching him work and how he worked with people and how he could deal with people and compromise and never burn bridges, knowing you had to go back to those same people on another bill. And he was just a master, and I learned a lot about it, and we had a wonderful time. And I never saw anyone drink as much coffee in a day as Gerry Conley does. That's it. Bye.
I always tell people that I have a BA degree and I have a degree in law, but I also have a postgraduate degree from the Gerry Conley School of Politics and Law in Government. So he's a special person, and the family's a special people, and I wish him well, and I think it's well-deserving that he is being awarded the Claddagh Award.
Many people should feel comfortable knowing that when Gerard Conley opened the interstate between Brunswick and Gardner and was arrested for doing that in violation of state law, we're going to try to avoid doing that kind of thing at the Turnpike under Jerry's leadership. But I served in the Senate with Jerry. My father and Jerry were the Democratic floor leaders in the state Senate, and it's great to be here this evening to honor Gerry Conley.
All of us are proud to call Gerry Conley our friend. I mean that. But we're even prouder when Gerry Conley calls us his friend. He's just a wonderful man.
John, God bless you.
How are you, my friend?
Thank you for making the trip from Presque Isle.
I said, for Joe Brennan, no way. But for Jerry, absolutely. I'll be there.
I said, didn't you see the no turn on red? And he looks right at me and he says, I saw it. I said, well, why didn't you stop? He says, you listen here. I'm 80 years old. I'm not going to spend 2 minutes of what I have left on this planet waiting for that red light. But as generous as he is, he's turning 80 in January. There's no 80th birthday party. This is it, right? This is it. And he's always talked about the big wake at Conroy Tully, and you know, you go up there, you promise them the world. I got 12 kids, you might get them too. There's no wake. This is it, all right? This is it. Just like Eddie Griffin, it's over. This is it. He's complaining. I know you may find this hard to believe, but unlike the last honoree, the good Governor Brennan, this guy's been meddling in this event since he found out he was the honoree, all right? Going over the list of the people who've been invited. Who's responded? Where's it? You're sitting where you're sitting. He made it happen, okay? Right here. He did it all right? But his one big thing was, I'm not going to any event unless my constituents are there, my neighborhood people. They better be there. They're here. There's 50 of them, okay? He calls the governor up, probably every day. And he expects him to answer the phone. The crazy thing is, he does. His kids won't answer the phone when he calls. What, are you kidding me? He answers the phone. And if he's busy, he calls him back. Governor, you have done so much for our family. We cannot thank you enough. He is the 11th Conley son.
If you didn't realize it, this is a shirt that you can wear at many of different events, but it's really appropriate since we were at a Red Claw opening night dinner. I felt like, you know, this would kind of blend in with the crowd here tonight too, Jerry. You know, Italians always want a little bit of Irish in them, and I get to wear this around, at least for tonight. But I want to also say to the First Lady and I, you've been a special friend. I know on our trips overseas and our trade missions, there are some that didn't realize why you were the counsel for the trip to France, being Irish that you were. Is Severin here tonight? He's still been watching protests. We appreciate the fact that we can call up and talk to each other. And I often tell the Conley boys that they're lucky that they had him as a father and continue to have his kind of mentoring and advice and counsel. And then they quickly tell me, it's a good thing you're there because at least he's spending time with you, not us. But in all seriousness, and I've got to tell you, it's great to have the Turnpike Authority here because Jerry, when Longley was governor, Jerry felt that he was being so tough about finances and everything else, he brought his own lunch with him to the Blaine House. And he brought it over in a brown bag, and it was kind of an embarrassment that Mrs. Longley took offense to. Jerry felt bad about that. He didn't want to have that happen to Mrs. Longley. He didn't mind Mr. Longley, but he did mind Mrs. Longley. So I noticed, though, as a member of the Turnpike Authority, when you had that little trip over to Austria, I called him up and I said, the lunches are getting better, aren't they? You've been a dear friend. You've been someone who is a great counsel, and I've appreciated that over the years, and there is no more fitting honor that this honor that they're presenting with you tonight that you deserve. You deserve to have it. And it's an old Italian toast, but may the road rise to meet you. They told me that St. Patrick was Italian. You happen to be Irish? But tonight is your night. God bless you, and God bless your family, and God bless the state of Maine.
Jerry was the choice of the powers to be for the first time to be honored last year. But he went and saw him and he says, I saw Brennan about a month ago. He doesn't look very good. you might want to do it, this year. That's what he said. Although we've been close political allies, and actually close to personal friends, Jerry has not always agreed with me. He has a right to be wrong, obviously, but for example, there was a bill I sent up to the Senate, to ban radar detectives in private cars. The only purpose was so people who had the extra dough could get a radar detector and avoid the state police slow down when they were around when the buzzer went off. And I sent it up, and, I thought it might reduce accidents, maybe save a few lives. Seemed to make a lot of sense. Jerry killed it instantly when it got to the Senate. What he said is, if the police can have radar, hey, let's give the ordinary driver a sporting chance. But that's what happened. And I had that just quaint little idea of mine about reducing highway accidents and saving lives was summarily dismissed. Jerry also has had a rather amazing record at winning elections. I think he's won 31 out of 32. That's something people like me just envy. And Charlie, you'd say so too, right? The fact is, the most interesting situation is the one he lost. And I'm sure Jerry felt badly about losing that race for sheriff of Cumberland County. But in so many ways, I think it was a big win for the other 250,000 residents of Cumberland County. But that was at a time when people felt about offenders when they're convicted. Take the key, lock them up, throw the key away. Now, had Jerry been successful, he'd have gone around and given the key in a 1-hour head start. No, that's because how he felt about people who had kind of a tough go in life because of his very warm heart. So, Jerry, that may have been a loss for you, but it was a huge win for the rest of us. Paraphrase the Irish author William Butler Yeats. You know, when he said, "My wealth is my friends. My wealth is having Gerry Conley as a friend and the entire Conley family." Thank you.
I have to tell you how we got to know Gerard P. Conley. When I say we, I mean my late husband, Dana. When Dana graduated from law school and entered the practice of law, which meant he had to have some clients, lawyers were prevented from advertising. What constitutes the largest group of professionals today? Take a guess. Lawyers? Dana ran against some active Democrats. He came in first, but he was the only Republican elected in Portland that year. He became friends with Portland Democrats, changed parties, was elected to the House, and met Gerry Conley, who was in his first days in the House. Gerry was at the Portland Terminal Company, working full-time with the railroad and the family, full-time with both. But there were only a half a dozen kids then. Coming from my polite background in the League of Women Voters political activities, it was all different. Gerry was very effective, and the guy didn't carry any physical bruises. So I gulped, grinned, and Gerry and I established a friendship. Gerry became a great leader in the legislature. He supported human rights proposals early and often. He and Gerry Talbot introduced a particularly controversial matter in the 70s, shades of last week. Courage, commitment, consistency. A great guy.
He began his career as a city councilor in January 1970. And as young Gerry said, Portland in 1970 did not resemble Portland of today. There was no major street that took you conveniently to downtown Portland. You had to travel through a variety of city streets, most of which took you through slums or very deteriorated neighborhoods. When you got to downtown Portland, there was no public parking facility. The city dumped 16 million gallons of raw sewage in Back Cove and under the piers off Commercial Street every single day. There were 2 open burning dumps that belched black smoke more frequently than we wanted them to. The old Port Exchange was 85% vacant buildings. Few people went into the neighborhood in the daytime, and only the winos went in there at night. Because of the difficulty in highway access to Portland, the lack of public parking, the deteriorated streets, no new office building was built in Portland since the early 1900s. That was the city of Portland that Gerry Conley became a city councilor of. Gerard P. Conley and 8 other members of the Portland City Council felt that Portland, Maine, the largest city in Maine, deserved better. And they embraced a series of projects that forever changed the face of Portland, Maine. While he served in the capacity on the council and at times as mayor, the Franklin Street Arterial was built, the Spring Street Arterial was built, the Free Street Parking Garage, the Temple Street Garage, and as young Jerry said, 750 units of public housing for the disadvantaged and the elderly. A new public safety building, 2 new fire stations, one in Riverton and one on Munjoy Hill. They put in place a 6-year sewer master plan to collect all the sewage so that it could be treated and no more raw sewage would enter the ocean. They provided leadership so that a regional solid waste system would be available that allowed them to shut down 2 of the open burning dumps. Gerard Conley and 8 members of the Portland City Council, in a brief period of time in the history of a city, transformed Portland, Maine from a city of blight and deterioration to one of the most livable and economically viable cities on the East Coast. For 40 years, I've been honored to call him my friend. God bless Gerard P Conley.
Listening to the speakers tonight, I really didn't recognize Jerry Conley. It wasn't the Jerry Conley I knew, the great international statesman who's contributed so much to the public good. But much has been said about his accomplishments and achievements as the legislature, city council, and others. And as we know, his public service has spanned several generations and continues unabated. I describe him as the Energizer Bunny of Maine politics. Think about it. He surfaces when you least expect him, and he goes on and on and on. But in any event, in order to truly appreciate his contributions, I reviewed his legislative record. Jerry sponsored 84 bills. 52 passed. Now, you would think these are substantive bills that affect the lives of Maine citizens. No. 34 of them were resolutions, complimenting somebody about this and that. Let me give you a sense of what Jerry did, how he spent his time in Augusta. The first bill he put in 75 was entitled An Act to Increase the Salary of the Superior Court Messenger of Cumberland County. Imagine the value that contributed, that had. The second one he put in was resolving providing a minimum service retirement allowance under the state retirement law for Edward C. Miller of Portland. Who's Eddie Miller? Who's he? Is he here tonight? He should be. Then we go on, and this one I think was the one that had probably the greatest impact and probably benefited the most people, particularly those in this district. Joint order recognizing Charles H. Marlin III of Bangor, who won the men's state candlebit bowling championship. Get a sense of that one. Following Governor Baldacci's election in 2002, I recall meeting with him to discuss his plans for his first term, particularly how he was going to deal with the $1 billion deficit that he had inherited from the previous administration. We talked about his cabinet appointments and appointments to the very important boards and commissions, of which there are several hundred. John stated at the time that his plan was to appoint a diverse group of young and energetic men and women to share his vision on the economy, health care, energy, and education. He wanted to surround himself with individuals who shared his vision and were not wedded to the old political ways. It would be the dawn of a new era in Augusta, said John Baldacci. So, as we all know, for a period of several months in 2003, John completed his cabinet appointments and other boards and commissions. One day I was chatting with him. I called him to congratulate him on the quality of his appointments when he informed me with enthusiasm that he had appointed Jerry Conley to the Maine Turnpike Authority. I immediately commended him for the appointment and reminded him that Jerry's appointment would reduce the average age of the authority by at least 20 years and would bring a fresh perspective to transportation policy in Maine. At this point, there was a long pause in our conversation, and John said softly, "Severin, I have appointed Gerry Conley Sr., not Jerry Jr. A person's character, as we all know, is defined by what he or she does during a time of adversity, when you're dealing with your problems or another family's problem. On October 23, 1971, my father was a patient at the Maine Medical Center suffering from terminal cancer. My brother called me in Rumford to inform me that my father was dying and I should get to Portland as fast as I could. Upon arriving in my father's room, I found my mother, brother, Father Robert E. Lee, and Gerry Conley kneeling and reciting the prayers for the dead. I didn't know Gerry well at that time. I'd met him a year or two earlier. I need not tell you of the profound impact his compassion act had upon our family. And I can't help but think of my father alive, how much he'd enjoy having two Irishmen kneeling at his bedside. Well, it's just another example of Gerry's unselfish and caring nature, and why we all here this evening to pay tribute to him. Gerry's wit and wisdom, his commitment to his family, his church, his culture, and our state has ensured his iconic status as one of Maine's most respected citizens. Thank you very much. Yep.
We've been accusing him of resume building since, the 60s, You got to be that leadoff hitter, and you got to have some entries. Well, he's still doing stuff. So he's the chairman of the Maine Turnpike Authority. York, Maine, look out. All right? Well, I know he put you on there, one of the many great things he's done. And fortunately, our friend Paul Violet is running it. And I want to say something, Paul. That campaign you've been conducting to have his nibs here, name that Taj Mahal of yours out there after our guest of honor. It's not lost on the family. Not lost on the family. But after all the tickets you bought here tonight and the sponsorships you produced, they may be naming this building after you.
The Honorable Gerard P Conley Sr.
Well, welcome to the Conley Taj Mahal. Now, I've heard a lot of squawking today, but you got to keep in mind one thing. We put 4 buildings into one. We stopped paying rent in 2 buildings. We're going to save, over the years, approximately $20 million by keeping everybody together, keeping the state police where they belong, downstairs, in the back. The state police and I have a very strong tie. It doesn't necessarily go back to I-90 or 295. It started there, thanks to my good friend Pete Danton. This was not my dream to have my name on this building. But I am deeply honored by it, and I thank everybody who participated in coming about to have this building named after me. But I know my family is truly deeply grateful for the action being taken here today. I don't really have a prepared script for today. I'm just really just shaken up by this great thing. I want to thank you all for taking time from your busy days to be here, and I'm just thankful for my family. Thank you.
want to thank you for the quiet counsel that over the years you have personally given to me. Jerry, on a regular basis, will stop by City Hall, and if without an appointment, will stop in and say, "Can I talk to you for a few minutes?" And he'll say, these things are going right. You better change these other things. And I really appreciate, Jerry, the time and counsel that you've given me. Unfortunately, our mayor could not be here this evening, and on behalf of the mayor and the members of the City Council, I'd like to read this proclamation, which was signed by the mayor honoring Gerard Conley Sr. Whereas Gerard P Conley Sr. is a true native of Portland for nearly 8 decades, who with his wife Ann raised 12 wonderful children here, and whereas Gerard P Conley Sr. served the City of Portland as mayor and city councilor, state representative, and president of the Maine Senate. And whereas Gerard P Conley Sr.'s career in public service spans over 50 years, and whereas Gerard P Conley Sr. always worked for those less fortunate and less powerful, that I, Jill C. Doosan, and the mayor of the City of Portland and the members of the Portland City Council do hereby proclaim, honor, and give recognition to Gerard P Conley Sr. Signed this 13th day of November with our appreciation and thanks.
Jennifer McGowan, who would be the oldest, and I don't want to say the most beautiful, though she is beautiful, grandchild. Please come on up, lead him up, and you can have Grampy.
Right here.
Right here.
Come on up here. Good boy.
On behalf of the family, my cousins, and my aunts and uncle, we'd like to present my grandfather with the Claddagh Award.
Give this to your mother. First, I really can't thank the Maine Irish Heritage Center for this very kind award that they've given me tonight. St. Dominic's is truly has left a very large spot in our lives. I can only remember, it seems like it was only yesterday, that I was working Beano games in the school next door. And we had AA meetings over at the school. You've heard of a lot about the good things that took place in my life, politics. And I always like to remember that things weren't always that great with Gerard P Conley Sr. If Jerry made it sound like I was a little tough on the boys during the years. Maybe I was, but the one that laughed the loudest was the guy that I was laying on the most. But their mother, God love her, she was a saint if there ever was one. She took good care of them. And she treated them with all the compassion that one could ever expect. You know, I want to tell you this because there are a lot of young people here this evening. And back when I was 11 years old, I was Peck's bad boy. My parents were the greatest parents, as any kid would say about their parents, the greatest parents that you could ever want. But I made their life miserable. I made their life a nightmare. And my brother David and his wife Jane are here from Pennsylvania today to pay tribute to the patriarch of the family. But it always wasn't that way. When I reached 26 years of age, I had already destroyed whatever kind of hope that I may have had in the future of gaining something. I had a terrible problem with alcohol. But I remember one evening, after knocking my head against the wall too many times, my father always told me, "Jerry, you keep it up." And he said, "You can hit that wall as high as you want. Your head's going to get a little softer, but that wall is going to stay solid." One day I decided it was time to do something about it, and I went down to 379.5 Congress Street, the E.C. Jordan building right across from the Central Fire Station. Alcoholics Anonymous was up on the 3rd floor. And I remember going up those 3 flights. And I got inside that room, and I looked around, there were about 20 people there. And I can assure you that most of them were in their 60s, 70s, and late 70s. And this young lad at 26 years of age didn't feel at the moment that he really belonged there. But as I came through the door, I happened to notice on the wall was this very huge framed poem. And I looked at it, and I'm going to hope I can remember to give it to you tonight, because it hit me right between the eyes. It goes something like this: when you get what you want, you struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day. Just go to a mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father, your mother or wife, whose judgment upon you must pass. The verdict who counts most in your life is the one looking back in the glass. And some people may think you're a straight-shooting chum and call you a wonderful guy. Just a second. Well, I'm losing it. Oh, okay. But the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. But he's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest. For he's with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult task if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartaches and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. That changed my life. In the front of the room, they had the so-called 12 AA steps to recovery. I only had to read the first one, and that changed my life around. And that clearly stated, and I accepted, that I couldn't drink, that it made my life unmanageable if I just took one sip. Because one drink was too many, and 1,000 wasn't enough. That was 54 years ago. And I've been sober since. Duffy is my Irish poodle. And people have said to me, there's no such thing as an Irish poodle. And I look at them and I say, if that's true, tell me when the last time you heard of a French poodle named Duffy. Right, Duff?